Hi, welcome to Silence Screams Loud Strength, the podcast, and I'm your host, Samantha. Today, we are going to talk about breaking the cycle of guilt. We touched on speaking and guilt in the last episode. So now we're just going to break it down a little bit more. Today, we are going to walk into a room many survivors quietly live in for too long. That room is called guilt. Not just guilt for what happened, but for surviving, for living, for speaking, for healing. You know, if you've ever felt like that weight is too much, this is the episode for you. Guilt is not an indicator of truth, okay? It's a scare left by manipulation. I'll say that again. Guilt is not an indicator of truth. It's a scar, actually, that was left by the abuse of manipulation. It's a scar because you are scared. Of what the repercussions, because there's repercussions, but somehow that lives in our heads because you've been traumatized. So everything is scary, fearful, and guilt-inducing. Because how dare you? So where the guilt comes, where does it come from? You may ask. I used to lay awake at night feeling guilty. Guilty that I stayed too long when I was supposed to have left. Guilt that I didn't leave sooner. Guilt that I pretended I protected him from my family more than I protected myself. Even after leaving, that guilt lingered. Guilt for speaking out. Guilt for disturbing the peace. Guilt for no longer playing small. But here is the thing that I learned, you know. Survivor's guilt is actually a symptom of systematic shame conditioning. We are taught to prioritize harmony over truths. We are guilted into silence, submission, self-sacrifice, especially as a woman. And when we choose ourselves, that guilt also rises. But that doesn't make it right, does it? That just doesn't, means it just means that we are waking up. We are. Because we've been asleep for far too long. And putting everybody else before ourselves. But how can you be okay when you're not looking after your health? Where you have no self-care, no freedom to be who you want to be. So the difference between guilt and responsibility, there is a huge difference between the two. So guilt and accountability, they are also two different things. Guilt says, I'm a bad person for what happened. Responsibility says, I'm taking back control of what happens next. So you're being responsible for yourself. But what guilt wants is for us to stay stuck. You have to stay stuck, but you can't. Responsibility empowers us to move forward. And here is something else radical. You can take responsibility for your healing without taking responsibility for their abuse. You are not to blame for what you endured. You are responsible for choosing a peaceful future. And that begins with forgiving yourself. So forgiveness is not for them, it's for you. So how guilt becomes a cycle. Guilt becomes a cycle when you don't interrupt it. You need to disrupt it. We replay sins. We analyze our past choices. We internalize other people's reactions. And before long, we feel guilty for simply existing in our truths. So how do we stop this vicious cycle that doesn't actually help us? We need to confront it. We need to name it. We need to reframe it. We need to replace it with compassion. And what is compassion? Compassion is self-love, self-care, putting yourself first. It's not selfish. So find a quiet place right now and get honest with yourself. What do I feel guilty about that isn't actually mine to carry? Ask yourself this question and answer it. Answer it to yourself very truthfully. Write it down. When did that guilt begin? Whose voice does that guilt sound like? Think about that. Now write down in your journal, I forgive myself for, name it. Let it flow. Let it be messy, because healing is not perfect. It's messy. Let it be real and let it be honest. Let it unravel and unfold. And accept what comes to mind into the pages of your journal. Because without doing the work, the journey ahead is hard. So you have to put in the work. We all have to. So right now, if you can do a little bit of affirmation to give yourself permission and freedom, and put your hands wherever they belong in this moment. Let your feet feel grounded, held by the earth. I release the guilt that was never mine. I forgive myself for surviving. I choose compassion over shame. I am free to heal from this moment. Let this affirmation be your new cycle, one of freedom, and repeat it as many times as you need to. Because sometimes with trauma, our heads are held in a state of arrest. So sometimes it's hard for information to literally sink in really quickly. This is why I always finish every episode with affirmations, because you have to practice these affirmations or affirmations of your choosing to to rewire and reframe your mind. I release the guilt that was never mine to carry. I forgive myself for surviving. I choose compassion over shame. I am free to heal and live the life I choose to live. Cultivate that freedom for yourself. You don't need to carry what was placed onto your shoulders by other people's expectations. You are not guilty. You are growing. You are sacred. You are free. And if this episode helped you to begin to break that cycle, I hope you will share it with someone who still needs to catch up to it. Together we are rewriting what it meant or what it means to survive and thrive. We don't get there without putting in the work. Carve a little bit of time for yourself and replace the guilt with compassion. Share your story on social media and tag me if you like. But I'm sending you virtual hugs and healing. You are what you choose to be. You are becoming a powerful force. See you in the next episode.